days. Got a lot of work to do. That's the bad news. The good news is there could not be a larger and clearer contrast between what we're fighting for and what the extremists that have hijacked the Democrat Party are fighting for. Before I go further, I wanted to acknowledge my wife, Bridget. Bridget's with me. Everybody that came take care. Been married for 35 years. This isn't what we thought we'd be doing at this stage of our lives. But she's all in. She's with me every day, all day, 16 hours a day, to every corner of Ohio. But she often likes to remind me, to make sure I remind you, that if I have the honor of you electing me, and making certain I go there and fight for you in Washington, D.C., that she's allowed me to do that for 2 terms, because a 3rd term is with a 2nd wife. So this is a 2-term pledge. Do you believe in term limits, by the way? All of you believe in term limits? You know, it was interesting to watch Joe Biden the other day talking about how the Supreme Court should have term limits. Right now, maybe Joe Biden should get a copy of the U.S. Constitution. Maybe he should read the Federalist Papers to understand why the Supreme Court shouldn't be subject to the whims of the day. But do you find it ironic that Joe Biden, who's been in elected office for 50 years, and Sherrod Brown, who's been in elected office for 50 years, want term limits on the Supreme Court? And you almost can't make that up. This falls under the things that you won't see covered by the media. All right? But we have this contrast. Look, this election is unlike any other that we've ever had in American history. If you go back to the, let's go back to the 1992 election. It was the 2nd presidential election that I voted for. My first election where I could vote was in '88. The second one was in '92. And it was Clinton versus Bush 41. Think about that election. There was a contrast. There was definitely a difference between Bush and Clinton, right? One man had integrity, the other one was Bill Clinton. But besides that, policy-wise, it wasn't a giant gulf like it is today. I mean, when you talk about President Trump and J.D. Vance on One Vision of America, and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, I mean, you have never seen a contrast election like what we're about to go through. And let's go through some of the issues. And by the way, don't forget that Sherrod Brown, who the other day told CNN that he wasn't sure if he could campaign with Kamala Harris, because, you know, he's got a schedule, she's got a schedule. I don't know if those schedules can intersect. Let me just tell this clearly. If Kamala Harris steps foot into Ohio, Sherrod Brown's going to run into his basement and tell Connie not to answer the door, okay? Now, what's interesting about that, again, what you won't hear the media report on, and where I need all of you to let your friends know, is that Sherrod Brown wanted to be Kamala Harris's vice president when she ran for office in 2019. Again, you won't read that in Ohio media. Well, by the way, the Ohio media, which I've nicknamed the committee to re-elect Sherrod Brown, because they won't report that. They also won't report that Kamala Harris came to Ohio in 2018 to campaign for Sherrod Brown, that he 100% endorsed Kamala Harris, and yet won't campaign with her, says that her strategy is different. Now, think of that word. He said, my strategy is different. Not his policies, because you see his policies are almost 100% aligned with Harris and Biden. But what does that mean that his strategy is different? Well, his strategy is trying to convince Ohioans that he's really a moderate and bipartisan. And are you ready for the punchline? That he supports President Trump. Think about that for a second. Now, this is a guy who, when President Trump needed him, when he was in office for 4 years, Sherrod Brown stabbed him in the back at every single turn, voted against him almost all the time. And yet now he's got ads where I had a friend of mine that was at the gym, and the TV was on, it didn't have sound because he's working out. And he calls me while the commercial's going on, oh, Bernie, I see your ad. And then literally during the commercial goes, crap, it's an ad for Sherrod Brown. Because it was so confusing that he's talking about fighting against the border invasion. Sherrod Brown has voted against every measure to secure our border when President Trump was in office. When President Trump was in office, Sherrod Brown said the wall was racist, the wall was stupid. We shouldn't be treating people this way. What does that mean, by the way? When people invade your home, should you allow that to happen? Right? Do any of you allow your home to be invaded? Of course not. But isn't America our home? Isn't this where we live? Well, shouldn't we treat it as such? Shouldn't we invite people to come here on our terms? Right? But here's what's even crazier. I want you to do me a favor. If you're here today and you serve this country in the United States military, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand. Let's give it a huge round of applause. We're at a point in time. We're at a point in time. And I say this all over Ohio, and when I say this, it actually upsets me so much that sometimes I can't get through saying these words. We live at a point in time today that our leaders in Washington, D.C., the people that we pay taxes to, the people that we elect, the people that we expect defend America, look out to make us stronger, safer, and more prosperous, that should be working for us as our employees in Washington, D.C. Those same people will treat illegal immigrants better than veterans. Let me give you the exact numbers. Got something you'll also never see any media report on. Last year, our leaders, our elected leaders, spent $451 billion taking care of illegals in this country. Now, let me put that number into perspective. The budget for the state of Ohio is $45 billion a year. Imagine if I was running for office or somebody was running for office for governor, and they said, my platform is that you never have to pay any taxes to the state of Ohio for 10 years. No cat tax, no income tax, no sales tax. You wouldn't have to do that if the federal government just said, hey, Ohio, instead of taking care of people that broke into our home, we're just going to waive taxes in Ohio for 10 years. Now, we wouldn't want them to do that because that's ridiculous. Because we're $35 trillion in debt. But the people like Patty that put on the uniform and served our country get treated like second-class citizens. You know, Sherrod Brown likes to brag that he saved the VA. Saved the VA. It's the exact opposite. This is a guy who's taking the VA and bankrupting it. Do you know who processes medical claims for the illegal immigrants in this country? The VA. The VA does that. The VA is responsible for processing the medical claims of illegals. Now, for the rest of us, civilians, they go to the doctor and make an appointment and have a copay and have a deductible. Does that sound familiar, sir? You have a copay, a deductible, have to make an appointment. You have to worry, is this hospital in-network or out-of-network? Does that sound familiar? Yeah. If you're an illegal immigrant in this country, any hospital you want, no appointment, just go right to the emergency room, no copay, no deductible. 10 million people. Now, how depraved has our government gotten under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? They said, well, you know, this is not looking good because they've had a few reporters that dare go down to the border and see the insanity of what's happening there. I've been there 3 times with my wife, Bridget. You know what it looks like to me? When you go to an Ohio State football game and everybody's leaving the stadium, that's basically what our border looks like. Almost nobody. Now the reporters say, there's vetting. Yeah, there's vetting in the sense that they stop you, have a very quick conversation with you and ask you, where would you like to go in America? What city do you like? Chicago, no problem. New York, no problem. Boston, no problem. You want to fly? We'll fly you there because the buses are full. Oh, wait, the airplane doesn't have coach? No problem, I'm going to put you in first class. Think about that for a second. Our government, with our money. So they said, well, we can't allow the American people to see that. So you know what they've done? In fact, you're going to take out your phone and Google this. Because you'll never hear about this in the media either. They then decided, when I say they, the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, decided to take airplanes, charter them for hundreds of millions of dollars, fly them to Nicaragua, and to Venezuela, and to Haiti, and pick up asylum seekers and bring them into America at our expense. Because they didn't want them to have to take the journey across the Darien Gap to America. Why on earth would we do something like that? When we have 35,000 homeless vets, when we have communities in Ohio that are hurting. I was on a ride-along a 3 weeks ago in Linden, the Linden neighborhood of Columbus. Is anybody familiar with Linden?
I lived there. As
You
a
live
kid.
there?
Yeah.
Does it need help? Does the
Oh my
community of
God.
Linden need help?
We moved there in 1960. You can't recognize it now. There are no trees anymore.
Unrecognizable. This is a very serious conversation. We have a community in our own state, in central Ohio, which is prospering, which is doing well, and yet we're leaving hundreds of thousands of Americans behind. What's our government doing? Sending hundreds of billions of dollars to countries that hate us, fighting endless wars, taking care of illegals. This is what's wrong with our country today. This is what we're here to fight for. Now, we have to do it with one arm tied behind our back. Because you see, the media is all in for Harris and Walz and Sherrod Brown. They will do everything in their power to disparage me, to disparage President Trump. Have you ever seen a human being attacked at the level that President Trump's attacked? J.D. Vance, the media's called him weird. I've known J.D. Vance for 8 years. This is a guy that is generally the nicest, kindest human being, a great person with an incredible story. You know, on his bus tour, 2,500 miles in every corner of Ohio, I want you to, what's your name, sir? Bob. Bob, I want you to imagine for a second that I gave you a choice. I'm going to put you on the bus for 7 days, 2,500 miles with J.D. Vance, or put you on a bus for 7 days and 2,500 miles with Kamala Harris. Bob? At the end of a week with JD, Tim would be like, man, JD's a great guy, man. When can we do this again? He's such a cool dude. He's great, right? He's an amazing, amazing guy with an unbelievable wife who's just so smart. Great kids. Harris, we pull out of the parking lot, we get on 70, I'm jumping. I'm jumping, I don't care, it's less painful. Absolutely less painful. But JD's weird. Because you see, the media will do everything in their power to twist the facts. This is very, very simple. When you're talking to your friends, your family, your relatives, at church, at the VFW, at the bingo hall, wherever it is that you are for the next 88 days, here's what you're going to tell them. Listen, this is about 4 things. Do you want open borders?
No.
All right, I know it's the morning, guys. Do you want open borders? No! Okay, you're away. Do you like high prices?
No!
Do you feel like, let's talk about high prices for a second. When you go to the grocery store. Now, Kamala Harris says that she wants us to restrict red meat consumption in America. Do you have a barbecue at your house? Right? You've had barbecues? Now, by the way, what they're doing already, by the way, to us, is that we want to have a barbecue. We want steak or hot dogs. We'd rather have steak, right? Yeah. But do you go to the grocery store and say, well, I'd like to have steak, but not today? Yeah. Not today. They're already doing that to us. That's right. But now they want to restrict it further. Do you like extra thick tofu or the soggy tofu? Which one do you like? The soggy tofu? No. That's what they want us to eat. They want to control meat. They want to control what we drive. They want to control what kind of stove we have. So we're the party that's about giving us an economy where we can survive. Where we can go to the grocery store and not feel like we just got murdered. Right? Now, what's the proof point? When President Trump was in office, did we have low prices?
Yes.
Yes, we did. Yes. And now, do we have high prices?
Yes.
Yes. And who did that? Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Sherrod Brown. And by the way, if it wasn't for Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, it'd be much worse. Right? So, open borders, high prices, and how about stability all over the world? Do you remember in 2016, when President Trump was first running. Hillary Clinton said, "You vote for this man, and we're gonna have World War III everywhere. He'll fight all kinds of wars." Remember that? By the way, who are the warmongers today? Democrats, right? Now, for 4 years, peace and stability all over the world. Joe Biden comes in, take a globe and spin it and just stop it randomly. Possibility of World War III. That's Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Sherrod Brown's track record. They talk about this war in Ukraine, they cause it. Their weakness caused that war. And what does Sherrod Brown want to do? He wants to send hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. Instead of, hey, let's end the war, let's stop the killing, and let's get the peace. And the Democrats say, no, we want a war. Let's send hundreds of billions of dollars more there. Why? Because they're paid off by the billionaire class in this country that profits dramatically when that happens. Something you won't hear in the news. We win, that war's over, the Middle East is in peace again, like it was, and China knows it does not touch Taiwan. And what's the fourth issue that I want you to focus on? American energy. You know, I look at the young people here, like Tice. Tice, stand up and I'm embarrassed. Tice, 22? 24, that's so old. All right, ancient man over there. Tice is going to grow up in a country, if you do your job, if we do our job, Tice will grow up in a country. Well, never again will we ever have to bend the knee to a dictator for energy. Ever. It is going to be absolutely. Now, let's talk about the final thing. Those of you who are on Social Security. You know, it's funny because the Democrats like to call that an entitlement program. Like, let me see how this works. You took my money. I went to work. You know, how many of you have had kids that go to work for the first time? They're 16 or 17 years old, right? And they, Mom, Dad, I made $200. I'm gonna make $200 a week, and they're so excited. And then they come and they are absolutely infuriated, right? They get, how do I only have $100? What happened to that money? I love it. When my youngest son is 26, he takes right after my wife. This is a kid that for sport, will try to figure out how to get out of spending money on things. And this is the most frugal human being ever. He still has his first communion money, okay? And so, Social Security, the government took us from us. By the way, did they give us interest? No, they just took it. They didn't ask, hey, would you mind if we take this money out of your paycheck? They just took it. They call it an entitlement program when they give it back to us. You can't make that up. Now, there's something called the Inflation Reduction Act, which is, like if this was in the private sector, you'd be sued for false advertising, okay? This is what you don't know. In that Inflation Reduction Act, they decided to take Social Security and Medicare benefits, mostly Medicare benefits, cut those by $300 million. I'm sorry, $300 billion. Million used to be a big number. $300 billion. You're about to see, if you're on Part D Medicare, you're about to see your premiums go up about 20 to 22% this year. One time, 22% increase. Why? Because they thought it was better to take your Medicare premiums and go up by 22% so that they could, are you ready, fill in the blank, give millionaires $7,500 tax incentives to buy an EV. Wow. Oh yeah, so you're paying Medicare premiums went up so that somebody could go buy a Tesla. Now, the media will say, well, that's not true. You don't get the EV incentive doesn't apply if you make more than $300,000 a year. By the way, is $300,000 a year a low amount or a high amount? Oh my God, that's a pretty high number. But here's the thing that they won't report. If you make $3 million a year and you buy an electric vehicle, but lease it instead of buying it, you still get the $7,500. Now, who do you think snuck that little loophole into the law? Right? Now, Please raise your hand if you think you would like to pay more money for Medicare so that people in Clintonville can buy electric cars. Please raise your hand. None of you?
No.
Now, how about those of you who are paying it? Let's go back to Social Security. Tim Waltz has said two things that is typical of people who've never worked in the private sector. That he wants to raise the retirement age for Social Security. Of course, he's never worked all day, every day, with his hands, got out and worked an assembly line, or worked in my car dealership as a technician. These guys work their tails off, where they may want to work past 65, but their body says, I'm sorry, your time period is expired, right? We're not going to raise the age limit on Social Security, period. Are you with me on that? And we're going to save Social Security by not giving it to illegals. And we're not going to cut Social Security because it's your money. And if you're a public service employee and you're getting screwed by the government because they're stealing your Social Security, we're going to fix that they said they're going to fix for 20 or 30 years. We're going to do that next year. Now, Tim Waltz said, well, we got to look at Social Security. We got to cut that. We got to reduce that. Yeah, so think about how sick you are as a government official to say we're going to take away benefits from seniors, the scraps that we give you, and then give you inflation to make it even harder to live. So that we can take care of illegals, so we can fight foreign wars. This is insanity. You know how long it took to pass the aid to Ukraine for tens of billions of dollars? How long it took? You know, if you're Sheriff Flint, can we give the sheriffs a big round of applause here? All right. Big round of applause. These guys have to beg for scraps to do their jobs. This Social Security Fairness Act has been out there for 30 years. Sherrod Brown loves to talk about it. For 30 years, he said he's going to fix it and hasn't. Where I come from, you get fired for not doing your job over 30 years, right? 30 years, you couldn't get it done. And basically, what is it? Preventing the government from stealing your money. In 24 hours, the government gave billions of dollars to Ukraine. In 24 hours, they got that. Think about how sick that is. Look, I'm going to end here. We have a lot of work to do over the next 88 days. I need all of you to make so many phone calls, Tim, that your friends beg you not to call them anymore. Beg you, Tim, please stop calling. We've got to get people to vote early. We've got to get people to vote absentee. We've got to make certain that you're passing out literature, you're putting up yard signs, you're posting on social media. When you see these reporters report inaccurate information, let's just call that Monday, you'll absolutely go on social media and post the retort, because they are going to twist themselves into pretzels to make the rest of Ohio think that Sherrod Brown is a moderate, that Sherrod Brown is bipartisan, that he's a reasonable guy. Expose him for who they are. Expose his lies. The media won't. Sherrod Brown says he's going to skip the Democrat National Convention because he often does. That's just a flat out lie. Flat out lie. Sherrod Brown has been at every Democrat convention with one exception since 1994. And yet the media won't report his lies. He's lying about me. He's going to lie about himself, because when he's talking, he's lying. Point that out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for fighting for this country. Just know what's going on with you. Thank you very much.